Hello.
Happy Thursday, everyone.
Happy Thursday. Yesenia, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Absolutely. Again, hello, everybody. I'm happy to be here. My name is Yesenia Reynoso. I am the founder and principal owner of Why Communicate, a small communications firm that assists clients and organizations in establishing and maximizing their brand presence through in-house corporate communications. So consider us your in-house corporate communications department. We have a heartbeat of a department, we have a mindset of a department, and we are an in-house corporate communications department. And I think if there is one thing in the communications industry that I, and as well as all of my fellow communications professionals, always tell our internal and external audiences is that storytelling is the bedrock foundation for your whys. Why? Because the true purpose of communications is storytelling.
All right. Booyah. How about you, Cindy?
I'm Cindy Murray, certified management accountant, MBA. I'm from Frankfort, Kentucky. I'm a licensed independent insurance agent selling car, home, life insurance, annuities, and also Medicare insurance. And we definitely use story doing and storytelling every day in our job.
All right. My name is Neil Gordon, and I'm the author of The Most Powerful Sentence of All Time. I'm intentionally being laconic in my response to that. Anyway, what do you both think of the idea of exploring storytelling as the first part of the larger subject, and then we can talk about story doing on the other side of that? How does that feel?
That sounds good to me.
All right. Would you like to kick us off with some thoughts, Cindy?
I'll be truthful. When I first saw this topic, I didn't know exactly what they meant. As an insurance agent, we use storytelling every day. I looked up on the internet and it said story doing actually started in like 2013. So it takes as an insurance agent, we have to build rapport with our customers, and we do that by storytelling, tell them something funny or something that might help. In other words, say something like, if you don't have any home insurance, you're going to lose a lot of money. But story doing takes that one step further, and you give them your idea. Story doing involves letting them have them take that idea and believe in it. So yeah, it's a further level of sophistication. Very good. Yeah, should help with client retention.
Well, I could definitely, coming from the corporate communication space, obviously storytelling is, as I mentioned, is the foundation for messaging, and the way as to how it can instantly be crafted into your liking. On top of us being, storytellers, we're also shapeshifters. We can change narratives and perceptions, and it all comes down to as to how you have a key understanding as to who your audience is, what they like, what they don't like, and the ways as to how you can craft the messaging to their liking, because the true power of communications is within your hands, is within the words. And so I think there needs to be a clear definition as to what is storytelling and story doing. So storytelling is the art of crafting compelling narratives that connect audiences through messaging, branding, emotional connections, etc. Whereas if you're looking at story doing, it emphasizes tangible actions, and it reinforces an organization's mission, vision, values, and expectations. So it's all about demonstrating the impact that you're going to do, versus just simply talking about it. So it's, you got to walk the walk, but you got to do the talk first, and then you got to do the walk.
And it's an interesting distinction, isn't it? Especially given the transparency of the digital age and how quickly a person can do a thing and suddenly the entire world knows about it. It's funny, when I was reflecting on this topic earlier, I was, in anticipation of our time together here, I was thinking about something that happened at the buffet this morning here in Luxor, at the Luxor, and this great big buffet with all these different things, and the woman who was taking care of us, it's a self-serve buffet, but the one clearing a plate or doing whatever it was doing, is this woman named Lien, who is from Vietnam. And I remembered her name. I noted her name because it's actually my name spelled backwards. And I found out that she's been working at the buffet at the Luxor for 31 years. And when my wife asked her, why aren't you a manager, or why didn't you move, and she just explained that she just wanted to keep things simple and just wanted to stay where she was and didn't want to move around all the different restaurants owned by the organization and whatnot. And it struck me that she actually became a really powerful embodiment of both the storytelling and the story doing, in the sense that she brought her story to having fled as a refugee from Vietnam almost 40 years ago, and it demonstrated a desire to live in a world where people are treating each other better, where it implied a lot of anyone who flees their country is clearly seeking a better life and is seeking a much more enlightened form of human connection. But she also was that, because she spoke with us and she had rapport with us, and she had the thing that a brand fundamentally is. She had impact.
Absolutely, and I could really echo your sentiments right there, Neil, because in the communications world, storytelling, the basis of it comes from the 5 W's: who, what, where, when, and why. The why is the heartbeat of the story. That is the key pillar as to how you're going to attract people in, to have a key understanding as to what the kind of message is that you're trying to either inform or persuade. Once you capture their attention, then the words pave the way to the action. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the story that you're about to tell, you want to convince them to do some sort of call to action. What exactly, at the end of the day, you want that particular individual or a whole massive public, what you actually want them to do. Do you actually want them to, if you're, let's say you're supporting a cause, do you want them to donate?
Right.
Or if you are, if you're working, let's say for a really top brand such as Nike, who is iconic with their Just Do It brand, do you want them to invest in the latest sneaker line, let's say Air Jordan, off of the top of my head? There are many different ways as to how organizations can customize their stories in order to convince audience members to actually do that specific call to action.
What do you both think are ways that a brand could... A lot of brands can do something, especially in response to a crisis and some sort of PR nightmare or whatever. They can do performative action. They can donate to a charity. They can issue an apology. They can send their thoughts and prayers, whatever it is. But that often is dismissed as performative in so many words. What do you both think is something that brands can do to transcend that performative quality and ensure, even if it's, let's give everyone the benefit of the doubt that it's an earnest action to take, how does that earnest action get conveyed?
In communications, Neil, it comes down to genuine and authenticity. It's something that, I personally, I've come from corporate America. I've worked in both in-house for both for-profit and nonprofit organizations. And I always, advise senior executives, team members, and our vendors, internal and external, is that at the end of the day, you got to make your presence known. You actually have to take the time and get to know your audiences better, knows the ins and outs, know how they behave, know the kinds of mediums that they, that they normally consume on a daily basis. Where do they hang out? And start building real, genuine, authentic connections with them, because many people are looking for brands that directly align with their values and interests. And so if you are able to truly have a clear understanding as to who they are, what they represent, why, why should I, as a consumer or client, should be invested in your product? Why should I invest in your organization? What does it come from me? The value of it, it's what matters. And eventually, once organizations start really authentically earning the trust of that brand, and trust is key in communications because you want to earn the trust of the public, then you're going to be able to position yourself as the go-to source for that organization. And it's especially prominent in nonprofit organizations where, especially for me, just recently I've worked at a prominent nonprofit in in the health equity department, where we talk and we interact with local community members and residents in low-income neighborhoods, offering free accessible health care and health equity. And not only that, but we also have to communicate with them in multiple languages, because it's really important for us to be able to deliver those services and to show them that A, we have everything that we have is open and available, but B, we want to cement ourselves as a reliable source to the community, that we are here to serve their needs. We are here to fulfill their, to be a source of value to them. And that is what you're looking for, because if you do, if you end up doing something that in the end breaks the trust of the community, your reputation gets shattered because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I also particularly like the example of speaking multiple languages.
Yes.
Because especially we're about to see a foreign language revolution in that our devices will be translating in real time, and just like GPS made us completely no longer need to know where we're going and we never need to look at anything.
Absolutely.
The people who know multiple languages and are actually able to speak to others in their native tongue, think about what that, already it means so much to someone. Oh, you speak English, or oh, you speak Spanish. Whatever it is, there's always this sigh of relief and this I feel seen and understood because you took time to learn an entire language and all of that. And that is an undeniable impact.
Yep.
Is walking the talk.
Absolutely. And also doing that story doing element, because multicultural communications has already been on the rise for decades. We're witnessing a shift within the corporate communications industry as we are starting to integrate a lot more multicultural content across all brands, for-profit and nonprofit. And so because we as a society, we are already a multi-ethnic, multiracial nation. Many individuals are now looking for brands that that properly represent their culture, their heritage, their history, and so many brands are now looking to figure out ways as to how they could create different types of messaging exactly in their native tongue, so that way they'll be able to transmit whatever message that they have, and as well as create different types of actions for them to become part of that community, because right now many people are looking for that community element.
Well, for sure. Connection winds up being so significant. And Cindy, you have more of a boutique level of service to individuals, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Let me get back to the article I found on what the difference between story doing and storytelling. It's from Rocket Content. It says, how many times in your life have you heard that actions speak louder than words, or been asked to show rather than tell? Sentiments like those are more than just catchy sayings. A great story is that's well told and inspires others. The way it was meant to do is great, but a narrative that takes better, and that's what we're all doing in the business. Storydoing has been around since 2013 and does refer in part to the act of crafting and telling a story. However, this type of storytelling is done in such a way that the listener is invited to further participate by becoming part of the larger movement behind what they're hearing. If it's storytelling encourages a target audience to absorb the message behind why a company does what it does, story doing inspires them to stand up and act on that message. Now I will tell you, I was also over the
The math.
$13 billion cabinet for health and family services. We had 7,500 employees. We covered all of social service, public health, Medicaid, the gamut. And we were in the secretary's office, the top-notch people in charge. I'll tell you one story that really, where the storytelling, if it got out, would have gotten us in big trouble. We got a call from the governor's office one day, and social services workers were down there unpacking boxes of applications for social services and throwing them in a public dumpster. They had all sorts of people's bank numbers, social security numbers, addresses, everything. Now, and the governor's office actually came over and helped us fix that day, because if that got out, that our cabinet was allowing stuff like that, then, yeah, it could get sued and lose federal funds and all that.
There winds up being so many examples. Like when I teach people about storytelling, it tends to be focusing on the significance of unexpected events. That's ultimately what makes a story worth telling, is that some sort of surprise, some sort of thing we didn't see coming takes place. And to your point, Cindy, you're talking about something that could catch on very quickly because of the scandal, and the scandal is by its nature unexpected.
Yeah.
What do you both think about meaningful and substantive ways to respond to scandal, so as to actually, yes, there was some sort of problem, there's some sort of unexpected hiccup or devastating event even. What does a brand do generally? What kind of strategies can brands employ to move forward in a way that doesn't destroy themselves?
I would say nip it in the bud, stop it immediately before it really gets to be a scandal and gets out there. That would be my
For me personally, I think crisis communications is all about preparation. Prepare, prepare, prepare. And I think organizations need to start realizing that crisis communications needs to be practiced year-round. It doesn't matter how small or how large your organization is. Doesn't matter what your title is, how many years you've worked for an organization. At some point in your professional career, you are going to be dealt with a crisis. And the first thing that you need to understand is the difference between a simple issue that is not going to cause much controversy, can easily slip through the cracks, monitoring it, and then an actual crisis itself. Something that could obviously blow up and threaten your reputation. If it is in the direction of a crisis, then the next step obviously will be to execute a strategic communications plan. And that's going to be involved in creating your crisis communications team, your messaging, the mediums as to how is it going to be utilized, how are you going to execute it, and your post recap.
I've got another comment.
Yeah.
On scandal in insurance. I'm sure you all heard recently that the CEO of United Healthcare was shot and killed.
Of course.
Yep.
Was it New York?
Yeah,
In
New
New
York.
York.
Yep.
Yeah.
New York.
So, and I wonder as an insurance agent, okay, how's that going to impact our sales with United Healthcare? And it really somehow it hasn't impacted it at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I think the company came out quickly, something said they had no idea, why that happened to him or anything like that. But
I think
yeah.
but I think it also ignited a conversation about healthcare and
Right.
the current state of the U.S. healthcare system. and as many people, unfortunately, has been dealing with medical insurance issues. Many people are becoming medically bankrupt because of it, and many other important issues that that average citizens unfortunately do not have the monetary flexibility to combat it with. And so I think these types of unfortunate incidents can also spark a movement or a conversation that is actually going to get people not only talking about the root causes of the problem, but actually doing something about it, performing an action that is going to be the vehicle towards real substantive change.
We also consider that the perpetrator of that murder was not vilified by everyone, in that there was a more ambiguous impact of that story. And if we juxtapose that, just randomly, this example came up into my mind thinking years ago when the spokesperson for Subway turned out to be sexually violent person, and Subway's sales took a major hit.
Yep.
When that happened. The impact, I mean, the sandwiches didn't change, the ingredients didn't change. The only thing that changed was the public's perception, because he was very clearly a villain in the zeitgeist of the culture at the time.
Yep.
Whereas this perpetrator was certainly a villain, held as a villain by some, but not everyone. And the ambiguity, of course, becomes an even more complicated layer on an event like that taking place.
All it takes is just one little mistake. For brands, you've built your reputation 20 plus 30 years, no
That's
matter
right.
how it is in business. All it takes is one little spark, one little mistake. A fire could commence, and then your reputation could potentially be down the tubes if you do not execute your crisis communications plan strategically and effectively. You got to be quick to the bone, and also keep your audience updated as to what is happening.
I'm struck by the potential significance of transparent communication when there isn't a crisis in place. And I mean, not the potential. I will stand here and say that transparent communication from a brand is incredibly helpful and powerful for setting the tone of the humans behind the brand. We are people, we are really working hard, and we're doing our best, and sometimes things don't go as well. I'm reminded of this isn't necessarily an ongoing transparency, but it does speak to transparency. There was that famous example of KFC, I think it was out of the UK, when they had a major screw-up, and then they had a very playful image of a KFC bucket with, like, the letters rearranged to imply a certain word. And it was very funny, and it was, we messed up. This is not a good thing to have happened, and we're not going to patronize all of you and make you think that it's all okay. There's a transparency that really seems to help mitigate the problems.
You hit the key word, which is transparency, because that's exactly what audiences are looking for. Stakeholders, investors, employees, the general public, they are all looking and not only looking, but also hearing to see transparent proof that there is transparency and accountability for your actions. And so many brands right now are finding out ways as to how they can execute different types of communication strategies that are specifically tied towards reliability, honesty, and genuineness when it comes to messaging, because many people at this stage right now are, the days of you being executing any kind of performative actions are over, because people can smell it from a mile away whether or not you're being genuine with it. And brands have to be, very transparent in the messaging that they're putting across.
Sometimes we do have incidents in the insurance industry where insurance agents, you talk about that you're being genuine and, honest. And unfortunately, I'm not one of these, because I would never do that. But there are agents out there that will sell them a policy, Medicare policy, that's less than the one that they're in now, just so they can get the sale and the commission.
Mm.
And that's not okay.
Of course not.
I'll actually put. I'll make a point on this from a corporate communication standpoint, from both internal and external communications. Every kind of messaging that you put out there has to be aligned, and I mean exactly aligned, because whatever actions that you ultimately are going to take are going to pave the way towards cementing your brand credibility. And so communications teams are pretty much kind of like coaches. We tell teams, we advise them on performing this kind of action. We give them the option to do so, and then it's ultimately all going to be up to the CEO or the senior executive team to execute that strategy. But it has to everything has to be consistent, both from internal and external circles, to transmit messaging across all mediums.
What do you do in the corporate world if you're working with such a big agency that it's hard to make sure that everybody is telling the same story?
I think that's where it's gonna, you're really gonna have to work extensively with teams from both internal and external circles, practicing and training on messaging. You have to stay consistent with this. So that means you're going to have to build genuine relationships, working directly, whether it's with them or cross-collaborate within departments, and have an understanding as to the messaging that you want to put out there, also get their feedback, and then ultimately have them involved in the process. Work together so that way everybody can get aligned on a targeted or a universal message that's going to be consistent across the board.
I'm curious, and in full disclosure, I had to think a bit on an example myself, so I'll share my example of the question I'm about to ask you both so you can both process this as well. But I'm curious as to what brands, and it might be a national brand or it might be a more intimate connection like the example I'm about to share, of a brand that really surprised you in their walking the talk, as in doing some kind of value, some kind of thing that they did that made you think, oh wow, that's actually quite wonderful, and I wasn't expecting that, and I'm going to tell my friends about this, or something like that. Do either of you already have your example in mind? Because I'm happy to go last.
Feel free to go first, Cindy.
Yeah, go ahead.
In
Cindy.
selling Medicare, we have the choice between the companies like Anthem, WellCare, Aetna, Humana, ones like that.
Mm-hmm.
And Aetna is the one that has come forward. And most of the seniors right now, the first thing they're going to want is a grocery card, because some of them are out there living on $500 a month, and that's it. Aetna has come across, and also covering dental implants. A lot of seniors would look, if they can do it, they would. Aetna has come forward and it's been one of the ones to fully cover dental implants. And also they've got one more thing, is they tell people that you can go live someplace else for 12 months and you don't have to change your plan.
Oh wow.
Most of the other companies won't do that. So Aetna stands out.
Yeah, that's a wonderful example. Yesenia.
I got two.
Yeah.
The first is Patagonia. That is a brand that I have huge amount of respect for, because they are very vocal in environmental issues. They have been front and center, whether it's participating through strategic partnerships with other organizations, especially those with nonprofits that's specifically tied to conversations surrounding green energy, the environment, whether it's through thought leadership or through different types of events, or they've even generated fundraisers for causes that that surrounds again a green sustainability. And then the second one that I have is Chewy. It is obviously we all know Chewy is the pet version of Amazon.
Right.
But and they have been extremely vocal, not only in the words but in the actions, as to how they absolutely help animals, especially those who have been left abandoned, helping in direct coordination with animal shelters to offer them resources, supplies, helping them to give the animals a second chance and finding a loving home. Also helping pet owners. I'm sure many of us here have cats and dogs, animals who we absolutely love, adore as family. Chewy, has helped them, to make sure that they have all of the resources, basic necessities, and they even have worked in collaboration with veterinarians as well to offer medical assistance to animals that are in need of care. And there is a quick example that I would like to give regarding Chewy. I remember a story that I read about. There was, I think it was a woman who recently lost her dog, and Chewy, she told them that unfortunately, she received an auto shipment of dog food, and she wanted to ask if she could return it back. Not only did Chewy was very accommodating in accepting that, but they also sent her a bouquet of roses, of flowers, to offer condolences over the loss of her, of her beloved dog. That kind of direct action and the stories that they tell through their commercials and all of their communications mediums shows that they know exactly who their audience is, who they tailor to, and the actions that they perform in real time cements their credibility across their audiences. And that's why in many ways they have one of the most powerful brands in the pet industry today.
Well, it's frankly just great to hear these examples, and just because, especially in the context of the health insurance and in the context of brands like Patagonia, the Chewy example, Yesenia, actually reminds me of how impressed I've been with this pet adoption center that's a national brand. It's called Best Friends.
Yes, I've heard of them.
You've heard of them, yeah. And so they're all over the country. And the local New York chapter is, and this is the thing that surprised me most, they have 50,000 or so Instagram followers, and they post regularly. And when I saw that, I was like, I would expect the entire organization to have 50,000 followers. But this is this local chapter, and they are so committed to engaging with the local population, and these cats and dogs just get adopted so quick. Like every week there's like almost 100% turnover with these animals, and it's New York City. There are a lot of animals that come through.
I can attest to that.
Yeah, and so they're just so, it's actually quite encouraging to know that there are so many brands who are committing to the people they're claiming to serve, and are actually taking that service seriously.
Absolutely. For brands everywhere, it's all about them finding their true purpose. What is their why? Why I am here? Why exactly am I here to do? I'm here to serve you. I'm here to serve the people. And it's through these actions, storytelling wise, and then story doing is actually doing it in real time. That is how you're going to win the trust of the public. That's how you're going to cement your credibility. And the fact that you have cemented yourself in those spaces, you have converted people into brand ambassadors. And once you have fulfilled exactly their needs and solved their problem, then they are going to start spreading the word to everybody else and get them involved. They intrigue their interest. And then they start learning more about the brand, seeing what they do, and it's a chain effect.
Well, it's a way that we could potentially look at this is that storytelling is the story that we tell about our brand, whereas story doing is the story that others tell about our brand. And that ambassadorship just become, my prediction is that brand ambassadorship will be the single most defining factor in commercial success in these next couple of decades, as we get more and more saturated and overwhelmed with marketing and whatnot.
Storytelling is not enough. as I've mentioned earlier, we are witnessing an evolution in the corporate communications industry. Storytelling is the bedrock foundation, but story doing is the next step in that process, because storytelling is not enough. Now you actually got to do and perform the action and do it transparently, because especially within millennials and Generation Z, they demand and want to see in real time organizations sticking true to their word and actually performing their actions genuinely, no fakeness whatsoever.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. How are we doing on time?
It's 3:05 right now, so
10 more minutes. Okay.
we can open up.
I've got one other thing we could discuss.
Yeah.
Sure.
And see what you all think about it. What do you all think about all these major chains that are going out of business and shutting down? You know, like Kohl's, for example.
Right.
KFC, all these, food places having to shut down. Yeah.
Yesenia?
That's an intriguing thing, because I think brands, have already cemented themselves for so many years, Cindy, serving the public, and constantly being a part of their lives, because that is something that we can instantly remember. But as society evolves, so does the ways to how brands continue to evolve. And so there's a saying that goes that those who adapt the fastest to the changes are the ones who are going to survive. And so I think my personal opinion is that unfortunately these businesses were not able to adapt to the evolving times, and listening to the new consumer bases that are popping up, and those who were able to adapt and implement and interweave those changes into their day-to-day operations and business plans are the ones who have been able to navigate through the storm cleanly and effectively.
I think there's a few that have actually filed like Chapter 11 bankruptcy or whatever, and they're coming back.
Yep.
So they could use coaches like you.
Well,
Happy to help.
when you think about how I'm reminded of an example that one of my clients teaches about, in that he talks about how Sony commanded the stage when it came to portable music, right? They had the Walkman, and then they followed up with the Discman. And of course, there were other brands that competed and whatnot, but we didn't have a portable cassette player. We carried a Walkman regardless of the brand that we used. And then I believe it was sometime in the 90s when they started to see the writing on the wall around fulfilling more technologically advanced needs for the marketplace. They pivoted by putting all of their resources into the mini disc player, which most people don't even know about because it barely had any market penetrance in the United States. It had some traction in Japan. But what's interesting is that they pivoted to more of the same. Okay, we have the CD, and now we're going to make the disc smaller. We're going to make sure it doesn't skip, et cetera. We can record on it. It's going to do all these things that a typical CD couldn't do, and they thought that they were adapting. But what the adaptation turned out to be, of course, is 1,000 songs in your pocket. And then the music has evolved even since the iPod. And so it's an interesting dilemma for a brand to know that they need to adapt and then find that they're still falling short in that adaptation. No one can predict the future, but perhaps if Sony had gone even deeper still, they would have figured out ahead of the curve that smaller discs was not where it was at. Do either of you have any thoughts on what brands can do to ensure that their story is one that stays relevant to people?
I could start off with that. I think, for the corporate communications industry, I think we need to bridge the gap between what we actually say and what we are going to do. I think in many ways, storytelling continues to evolve quite rapidly, and we are living at a time where we're experiencing a 24/7 news cycle
Mm.
where there is literally so many things happening right now, and many people are consuming their information at a rapid pace.
Mm.
And so it is up to the brands to have a constant heartbeat as to what is happening every single day across news cycles,
Mm.
and to be aware as to what are the trends that are coming, which ones continue to stay dominant, and which ones are on the decline, and how can we implement those tactics into our marketing and communication strategies, plus ensuring and reviewing metrics, statistics like KPIs, key performance indicators, ROIs, return on investment, SEOs, so that way brands can once again be able to adjust their strategies and being able to either stay with with the crowd, or start paving ahead and cementing themselves.
Mm. Absolutely. Any other thoughts, Cindy?
I think with the Medicare insurance companies, they are overseen by the Federal Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. So with their Medicare plans, Medicare Advantage prescription drug plans, which is what most seniors want, they are required to do, all of them have to do a base package for them. But on top of that, other than that, they're allowed to do different things to increase their client base. So what they have to do is have continual um, communications with the Medicare recipients and find out what they want, because that is probably ever changing.
Mm.
You know, go figure that older person would change their mind on what they wanted, but
Right.
yeah, they have to stay on
except
top of what
except
they
for
want.
the dental
Yep.
implants, they're probably pretty solid on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there winds up being a recurring theme in just the simple act of meaningfully connecting with your people,
Yep.
asking them the questions, listening, and reminding them that you have listened and that your actions are in reflection to what you've discussed.
Absolutely. And I think I could wrap it all up, for if you are for founders, CEOs, senior level executives. I think the question now that you need to ask yourselves moving forward is not all is what is the story that we're telling, and then what is the story that we are providing through what actions. I think those are the two big questions brands need to ask themselves moving forward as they continue to further establish themselves through storytelling and story doing, because storytelling is story doing.
Absolutely. Any calls to action that for our audience that can help them to move forward and navigate their own brand identity in a meaningful way?
I've used this phrase a lot in both my corporate and now my entrepreneurial journey, is to be uniquely you in the way as to how you tell your story, and how you and how you actually execute that story, because that right there is not only going to cement who you are, but it's also going to pave the way towards crafting your legacy.
Cindy?
I think basically focus on what your prospects or customers want, because meeting or not meeting that is going to make a difference on where you stand in market share. So if you can't stay on top of that, then you're going to get beat. Others are going to pass you up. So
Absolutely. And I'm reminded of, in terms of telling stories, I'm reminded of a old school literary agent from, I believe she was at ICM back in the day, and she had this saying. She said, "Don't tell me about the Holocaust, tell me about Anne Frank." With the idea that in telling stories, we have to remember that we're ultimately people, and we want to hear stories about not groups or trends or anything like that. We want to hear stories about individual people. And one of the best things that we can do is make sure that the stories that we share are relatable on that more individual level.
Words lead to action.
Yeah.
That is the true power all of us have here.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, we're at time now. So unless if there is any other questions that you may have, obviously we are here ready and willing to connect and collaborate in any way that we can. So hopefully you've all enjoyed this insightful conversation about storytelling and story doing. Thank you, everyone. Happy Thursday.
Do we have a question?
Oh, we have a question? Mike, I know. I have 4 cats, by the way. Chewy's my go-to platform.